Most salespeople think they're losing deals because of price, timing, or a competition, but they're not. They're losing because they're speaking the wrong psychological language to the person in front of them. So there's a framework called spiral dynamics, and it maps exactly how different people see the world. And once you know it, you will never have a mismatched sales conversation again. Here's how it works in a real sales calls. So, and why it made sense, it was because I was coming back from one of my, I'm just writing like self reflections every day for a year or even more than a year already. And with some of the reflections that I have written down, my coach was asking like why I was so triggered and impacted by people that I had the conversations with and I couldn't influence their decision. And when he probed a little bit and asked me of like what was the background of these prospects, he asked me like a simple question: do you really feel that the people that came to your calls was actually in a position to do anything based on where they are, where? And that at the first it didn't make sense. I thought it was like, no, I just need to get better with the sales. But then like learning this like spiral dynamics, like this view and how you can perceive the world and how people are thinking where they are, I understood that hey, maybe there is actually something, and I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more today. So, and the reason why it resonated at that particular like a point was because imagine somebody who's actually under, like, let's say you sell B2C, right? And somebody's an actual like a heavy constraint money wise, and there's like decisions that they need to make in their life between like, hey, will I have enough food for my family to bring on? And shall I invest somewhere so I can start making more money?
Why are you the way that you are?
So what are going to care more, or what is going to influence their decisions here? Like what's going to be in their priority list higher? Food or like whatever, any investment, right? And by the way, if you're new here, I break down frameworks like this with real call examples every Wednesday. Subscribe below. Spiral Dynamics says that people don't just have a different personalities, they have a different worldviews, different things that they feel true, feel safe, and feel like winning. And the mistake most salespeople make is selling from their own worldview instead of the prospects. So there are 8 levels, and you're going to encounter 4 of them in almost every B2B sales conversation. And let's go through the one that's actually matter. So, and the simplest way on how to identify on which level on the spiral, like where the prospect is actually by listening them. Well, for you to listen them, first you need to know like what questions to ask. But all of that questions and the fluff aside, right? The way that is going to represent of where they are and how they view their worldview at this stage is by asking the questions. Super important for you not to stay at the surface level, because if they're just going to give you 1 or 2 word answers, you can't piece it together, right? But you need to listen how they describe the things, how they've been making the decisions, and where they are, because language, the way we speak, tells a lot. So they're red: power, dominance, action, right? So this prospect is terrified of one thing: looking weak, being told what to do, losing the control of the situation. And you will hear it in their language. I want to crush the competition. They're going to say that they need to win, and they're going to ask, show me. The worst thing you can do with a red prospect is to challenge their authority or present yourself as an expert telling them what to do. The right move: position your solutions as their weapon. This gives you the edge. While your competitors are still figuring this out, you are going to be already ahead. You're not selling to them, you're handing them a sword. If I would need to share like some stories about the prospects that I met with who was on the red, right? Just because of where my ego was, and obviously people who's on the red, they are like in this fight mode, right? When you try, like when you clash, when your ego clashes at that stage where you're trying to prove them that you are pretty much right, and that person is trying to prove you the opposite, nothing good happens. So when you try to use like a logical things with the prospects who's on the red, they don't have that ability to digest it, and usually it just blows up. So blue: order, rules, and a structure. This person needs to know it's been done before, the right way, by the right people. And they're not asking, will this work? They're asking, is this the proper way to do the things? And the language patterns that you're going to hear is, what's the proven process? Who else has done it? What does the contract look like? Don't pitch them like on innovation. Don't tell them that you're disrupting the industry. Give them a step-by-step plan. Show your certifications, reference, track record, and let them feel that they are following the well-worn path. Structure is trust for the blue. So usually the blue prospects are going to be the ones who's a little bit older, right? In more rural sides of the country, it's like more like middle part of the US. They're a little bit more older. They have these experiences. They've seen a lot in this world. So they want to follow the structure that kind of have been proven, so they can follow it like they've been following their ancestors, I don't know, their parents doing the same thing or the similar thing in the past. And obviously, the fastest way to butcher the conversation with the prospect who's on the blue is starting to challenge him. Because what happens when you start challenging him is you start interfering with their identity, which is a totally wrong way. That is not the thing that is going to convince that person, because the most important thing for the blue is that, hey, is the things is in order? Have somebody else done it? Well, show me how that worked for somebody else. And if you try to challenge him, that's from the levels below, it's not going to work. Orange. This is your most common B2B prospect. Achievement, results, return on investment. They're playing a game and they want to win it faster, smarter than everybody else. They don't care about the process. They don't care about the relationships. They care about the one thing. What are the numbers and how do I beat my competition? Lead with the data. Here's the exact return on investment 3 similar companies saw in 90 days. Show benchmarks, show competitive advantage. With Orange, you're not their consultant, you're their competitive intelligence. So, and this is one of big mistakes that a lot of salespeople do. They feel that when the prospect comes to the call, everybody is Orange. Everybody would want to see like the return on investments and how it worked for the prospects. While it's not false, but if you solely focus your conversation just on showing these things, you might shoot yourself in your own foot. Because if you're talking with somebody who's on a blue or somebody who's on the red, how is that going to help them, right? And a lot of salespeople spend their time like during that presentation showing exactly these things without kind of identifying of what level are their prospects on. Green is the one that trips up the most salespeople, especially those who come from a hard close background. Green prospects care about their team, their community, and authenticity. They're not asking what is their return on investment. They're asking, is this person trustworthy and will this hurt anymore? Will this hurt anyone? The moment they sense the manipulation, even a subtle push, they shut down completely. They don't object, they don't disappear. With Green, slow down. Ask about the team, show that you care about their collective outcomes and not just their individual win. Use we, not you. Authenticity isn't a strategy for Green, it's the only thing that actually works. So, and just to be real, in my sales, I haven't encountered too many like a green prospects, but when usually they come to the calls, you kind of feel it, especially, well, I mean, if your feeling radar is on, they're somewhere else. They're a little bit out of this realm of like, let's fight, what's the order, what is the return on investment, the previous levels of the prospect that we have just discussed. They're more like, hey, beyond. They're like thinking and feeling beyond. And sometimes when you ask them like these dreaded questions that's on your script, they kind of seem confused of why you're even asking that, because they don't care about like these lower level of problems. They tend to they want to look at bigger problems and the bigger impact that they would want to do in their life. So, and If during your questioning you thought that somebody is at the orange and you feel that that person is more like a green one, well, it's like easy pivot. You just start shifting your questions to the bigger impact, to how this is going to impact their team, environment, the community, and you kind of leave all of your logical return on investment questions just behind, and frame them, and put the benefits around like these things rather than the return on investment. So here's the real cost of ignoring this. Red prospects gets your collaborative consensus building pitch and thinks you are weak. A green prospects get your return on investment heavy competitive advantage pitch and thinks you're manipulative. Same product, same rep, completely different results because you spoke your language instead of theirs. Spiral dynamics doesn't change what you sell, it changes how you make the other person feel understood. So tomorrow, next time you hop on your call and you ask your first discovery questions, situation questions, listen carefully, have a hearing ear of how they describe the things, where they've been, what they've been doing, and most importantly, what is the reason of why they have been doing those things particularly that way. And if you're gonna probe and clarify within this section, you will start unlocking like the perspective of their worldview. A lot of people will stay a long time on a specific level, like on a specific level throughout their life. Some people is gonna change over the time. So I wouldn't keep the bill, especially if you start talking with somebody that was like on a levels below the red, let's say purple or maybe even gray levels, right? But it tends that people might shift into the next levels. So over the time, when you're speaking with somebody, I wouldn't assume that they are like at the same level of where they are when you first met them. Your product isn't the problem. Your pitch isn't the problem. The problem is that you're speaking to the person you think they are instead of the person they actually are. Learn their language, sell in their world. Everything else just follows. So if this made you think differently about the prospect you're currently talking to, that's the point. Subscribe below. Every Wednesday, I break down frameworks like this with real calls and real data.